CNN is trying to defend their reporter, Natasha Bertrand. She's the one who was wrong on the Russian collusion story, but she went ahead and passed on illegally leaked information from Fusion GPS and the intelligence community. She was wrong on the Alpha Bank story. Remember that one? Oh, yeah, she had her name all over it when she used to work for Business Insider. Then at Politico, she was wrong on claiming that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. And now, of course, she was the lead reporter on this latest illegal leak, anonymous leak, that claimed that there was minimal damage to the Russian nuclear facilities. CNN standing by her, and they put out a remarkably duplicitous statement yesterday. But here's the punchline. By this morning, even CNN had to admit the truth, that yes, our military has destroyed Iran's nuclear capabilities. And that happened on the air today at CNN. We'll show that to you coming up in a sec. But first, yesterday, CNN put out this statement. And I want to break it down for you because it's very important to see the language that they used here. First, they say, we stand 100% behind Natasha Bertrand's journalism and specifically her and her colleagues' reporting of the early intelligence assessment of the U.S. attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. Okay, so they're standing by their... And I get it. Listen, if I hire a reporter and a reporter gets a story, it's my job before it gets broadcast or published to make sure that it meets our editorial standards, right? So at some point, some other employees at CNN, at the editorial, and who knows, maybe even at the executive C-suite level, had to say, yep, go with it, run with this story, we'll stand behind you. So as the story starts to get scrutinized, you have no choice. You got to stand behind your reporter, as long as your reporter didn't lie to you, right? So good for them. Listen, it's their brand, it's their employee. They decided to put their credibility on the line, or whatever's left of it. So when it comes under attack like it did yesterday, they're going to stand by it. Now, I want to draw your attention to the last paragraph here. We do not believe it is reasonable to criticize CNN reporters for accurately reporting the existence of the assessment. Wait a minute. What? The existence of this? I'm sorry, was that what they were reporting? Is that how you saw it? Did you see CNN with headlines that said, an assessment exists? They didn't just report on the existence of the assessment. They reported on and characterized the contents of the assessment. And that was selective. They pulled one or two lines and left a whole lot of important information from this very preliminary assessment out of their reporting. And now they're moving the goalposts. They're saying, hey, don't attack us. We merely reported on the existence of the assessment. This is not the first time they've done it. I'll show you again other times where they've moved the goalposts. But here's CNN last night trying to cover each other's asses on this story. Watch.
Just how effective were the American strikes on Iran's nuclear program? Well, tonight, CNN is learning a preliminary intelligence assessment suggests they did not destroy Iran's nuclear sites. This early report is from the Pentagon's Defense Intelligence Agency. CNN has spoken with 7 people briefed on it. One source says that the strike set Iran back, quote, maybe a few months, tops. 2 others tell us the country's stockpile of enriched uranium was also not destroyed. Another says the centrifuges are largely intact.
There you go. Now, it sure looked like the thrust of their reporting was the contents or alleged contents or their characterization and interpretation of the contents of that assessment. The story was not, hey guys, this assessment exists, that calls into question. No. This is very detailed. Sources say, sources say. And again, I want to remind you, the one thing that's left out of this report is the motivation behind the people who are willing to break the law and illegally leak a top secret assessment to the media. That's left out of the story. But instead, they're now trying to recharacterize this as, hey, we didn't hang our hat and tell you that everything that was in this assessment was the truth. We were merely reporting the existence of the assessment. Here, this guy right here yesterday tried to move the goalposts. Watch how he does it.
Asking questions is literally our job, demanding facts and answers, instead of just taking a president's word for it.
I'm sorry, wait a second. Isn't this the exact same guy who literally took President Biden's word for it about how mentally capable he was, about how healthy he was, about how sharp his attack he was? Isn't this the guy who just wrote a book admitting the fact that he and all of his colleagues in the media literally just took the president and the White House's word for it about Biden's health and Biden's cognitive abilities? And now he puts his smart guy glasses on and defends himself and his colleagues and his network by saying, hey, this is our job. We're supposed to challenge the president when he says that the nuclear capabilities were obliterated. We can't just take his word for it. I'm sorry. Am I in La La Land here with this guy? Oh, but it gets worse. Take a look.
What about the entire nuclear program? Is it all gone? An initial intelligence assessment that said that the U.S. strikes did not destroy the core components of the country's nuclear program and likely only set it back by months. It is, of course, possible that at some point after more intelligence assessments are completed, the president's claims of total obliteration of the entire program could bear out to be true. But so much right now remains unknown. We still do not know what is underneath all the rubble at these bombed out sites. Has everything been completely destroyed? Now, CNN was first to report that one early DIA, or Defense Intelligence Agency, assessment suggested that the U.S. military strikes on Iran this weekend did not completely destroy the core components of Iran's nuclear program. Joining us now, CNN political and global affairs analyst Barak Ravid. What are you hearing from your Israeli sources about the assessment of the damage 4 days after?
I have to tell you, a senior Israeli intelligence official told me today that overall, other than the fact that he's using the word obliterated, but overall, the Israeli intelligence assessment shows that the reality is much closer to where Trump says it is than to where the initial DIA report said it was. And obviously, a few days passed since that DIA report, and more information. We have more information about what exactly happened. But one of the interesting things that the Israeli intelligence learned over the last 24 hours is that in Fordow, the damages are also inside the compound, underground. There is intelligence that shows that there has been internal collapse, underground collapse inside the facility, which is something that shows us that it was badly damaged. Because if you have centrifuges in this facility and there was a penetration of a bomb inside and there was collapse inside, then those centrifuges are gone.
I love that. That in the same segment, on the same show, just moments after, Jake Tapper with the smart guy glasses grandstands and says, listen, there's a whole lot we don't know, but yeah, we exclusively reported that one of the assessments was this, and then now let's ask somebody else, and they say, oh, no, it's all destroyed. Our sources in Israel say it. And by the way, CNN has sources in Israel. CNN knows these assessments are preliminary. They know that there's the entire... You just heard Jake Tapper himself say, there's so much that we don't know. Well, if there's so much that you don't know, why did you run with this story? Which you will admit yourself right now is just a small sliver of the big picture. And of course, the answer is they didn't care to properly inform their viewers. They cared to try to create a new narrative that damaged Trump, that hurt Trump, that undermined our military, that called into question the effectiveness of the military's strike on Iran. That's why they did this, and they know it. They're smart enough to know it. But then, later on in the evening, I kid you not, this is all on CNN, and it's all within hours of their own shows. After that assessment from an analyst who has sources in Israeli military and Israeli intelligence, then they had this guy come on.
Look, there's a reason that no president has done this before. It isn't because they weren't as intelligent as Donald Trump or they lacked the courage. It's because they listened to their military and intelligence officials who warned them that military strikes could be ineffective and could have serious adverse consequences. It could actually speed up a country's drive to get the bomb, not slow it down. That's what we're seeing here. There's enough capability left in Iran for them, just with the 60% enriched uranium that survived and the centrifuges and the other secret underground sites that they have, that they could be racing right now to construct a bomb, which they could do, at least the material for the bomb, within a matter of days, and perhaps have a weapon within a few months.
This guy, did you catch that? He's literally saying now that because Trump ordered this military strike against Iran, despite all the damage that we've seen and learned about, this guy last night says, oh, no, this has actually now moved Iran closer to achieving a nuclear weapon. He's literally making that case, and nobody at CNN is challenging it. Oh, yes, that makes sense. Thank you. Thank you very much. That helps. That helps quite a bit. Fast forward now to this morning. It was about 2.5 hours ago when on CNN, they finally had to admit the truth.
What we now know from that briefing, first time we know it, is that as it was designed, as these massive ordnance penetrators with significant computer software engineering went directly down those 3 ventilator shafts, specifically as designed. And until you actually do it, you never know if it's going to work. It worked. It seems to have worked flawlessly. That is very important information. He also pointed out some things we take for granted. You know, a Patriot interceptor is traveling at 3,000 miles an hour, about Mach 4, to hit a ballistic missile, traveling at about 6,000 miles an hour, Mach 8. This is really difficult. We take for granted how this stuff all works. I thought that was very important to lay out. So as I come out of this briefing, I now know BDA level 2, as I mentioned. Level 1, first 24 hours, you're looking at imagery. Level 2, did the ordnance work? Did everything go as we had wanted? The answer now is yes. And we're now in the phase of level 3, collecting all sources of information and then putting that together with nuclear experts to determine if they have these pieces and parts here, could they reconstitute them? With some political analysts to say, would the Iranians do that? What would be the restraints? To then have a comprehensive assessment of where we are. With the objective being Iran can never have a nuclear weapon and its enrichment program has to be completely destroyed. I think from what I've seen, the 20,000 centrifuges, you had about 17,000 in the Natanz, about 3,000 in Fordo, they are all completely destroyed. I am very confident those centrifuges are gone. The Israelis destroyed the centrifuge manufacturing production facilities that we know of. Isfahan, which is the conversion facility, key part of the fuel cycle, also appears to have been destroyed. So if you add it up from what we're seeing, massive catastrophic setback for Iran's program. The term of art, obliterated, destroyed, I kind of step out of that. This is an analytical process. It's important for the professionals now in the intelligence community to be able to do their work without political pressure and come out with their assessments. And we'll know soon enough. There's a lot of work going on here from U.S. intelligence agencies, from Mossad and the Israelis, from other partners. But I thought that briefing was important. We now know that operation that was developed over multiple administrations worked exactly as it was designed. So I didn't know that. I couldn't have confirmed that 24 hours ago. I now know those 3 ventilators, they went down there and it worked. That's new. And that means probably Fordo is rendered inoperable for the foreseeable future, probably forever.
That's huge. And that's amazing. And that was, as you saw, on Fox News just a couple of hours ago. Excuse me, on CNN just a couple of hours ago. Now, let me give you the timeline once again. 2 days ago, CNN, prime time. The attack didn't work. Barely scratched the surface. We've got an assessment from military intelligence that suggests, maybe just set them back a couple of months. Mission failure on CNN. Exclusive. It's all ours. It's then within hours pointed out, first of all, that's top secret. It shouldn't have been leaked by your anonymous leaker. And there's a whole lot more in that report that you're not telling your viewers. You're only cherry picking 1 or 2 lines to make Trump look bad. Fast forward to yesterday, where you had CNN specifically bring in a guy from Israel on the ground who has sources in Israeli intelligence saying, yeah, it's gone. It's been obliterated. Then a couple of hours later, they have a guy on their panel that says, hey, based on my assessment right here, they still got their centrifuges, they still got their uranium. They're probably closer to a nuclear weapon now than they were before the attack, and you can blame Trump for that, thank you very much. And then less than 12 hours later on CNN, they've got a guy saying, centrifuges are gone, the facilities are gone. You can call it obliterated. You can call it devastated. You can call it destroyed, but it's over. That's all on CNN. And I know people are probably there saying, well, listen, it's a shifting story and you just report what you get as you get it. No, actually you don't. Not on something this important. Not on something this crucial. Not on something this critical. You're at CNN, you have editorial judgment, you get this anonymous leak from somebody who's clearly leaking it for political purposes to undermine the president, undermine the Secretary of Defense, undermine the military, and undermine our efforts in the Middle East. You take it and you say, well, hold on a minute. Okay, this is interesting, this is good, but why don't we get further information? Let's not just run with this. Let's see what else is out there. Maybe let's wait 12 hours and see some more assessments before we put out something this volatile and this potentially damaging and then end up being wrong about it. But that's not what CNN did. It's not what the New York Times did. It's not what the Washington Post did. Although I would argue that the reason the New York Times and the Washington Post went with the same story was because they had to get out in front of it since CNN broke it and made it exclusive. That's how it works in the military. By the way, if you're also in charge of editorial judgment at CNN, as you get this preliminary report and as you use some judgment, as you're the adult in the room and you say, hold on, everybody take a deep breath. There are major ramifications if we run with a story like this, so maybe we should assess it. You should also stop and say, by the way, who's the reporter bringing this anonymous leak to the table? Oh, I'm sorry, it's Natasha Bertrand? Isn't she the one who got the anonymous leak about the 51 intelligence officials claiming that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation? Boy, she got that story wrong, didn't she? Isn't she also the one that had the Alpha Bank story about Trump and Russia? That was made up. She got that one wrong. Wasn't she also in the back pocket at Fusion GPS and the whole Steele dossier story? She was wrong. By the way, why the hell does she work for us? But nobody did that either. Nobody did that at CNN. Instead, take a look at what they did do. Nick Fondacaro, who does a great job at Media Research Center, cataloged exactly how they lied to their viewers, and now not only are they moving the goalposts, as I said, by saying, hey, we merely reported on the existence of the assessment, but they're also trying to rewrite history and delete the way they originally reported the story. And Nick, over at Media Research Center, he caught him red-handed. First, take a look at this. This was this morning. I want you to watch how they try to cover each other's butts.
At the same time, we do need to make clear that despite the emotional speech and outrage from the defense secretary, what he said about the DIA assessment is what CNN reported on. His issue that he took about it being preliminary, about it being low confidence. CNN reported on all of this. I was looking back just to make sure that we had it all throughout the reporting process. CNN had reported that it is preliminary and, of course, can be updated, including these two parts. It is still early, we reported in our initial report, for the U.S. to have a comprehensive picture of the impact of the strikes. None of the sources described how the DIA assessment compares to the views of other agencies in the intelligence community. The U.S. is continuing to pick up intelligence, including from within Iran, as they assess the damage. Also in CNN reporting, where the secretary took real issue and seemed very upset about it not being stated that there was low confidence stated in this DIA assessment. Also in CNN reporting, including this, the final U.S. military battle damage assessment by the DIA could take days or even weeks to complete. Multiple sources familiar with the Pentagon's process told CNN. The initial DIA analysis was produced just 24 hours after the attack, according to one of the sources, because it was only a preliminary analysis. Its judgments were low confidence, the sources said.
Wow, well, so that's pretty damning. There you go. They've even pulled the quotes and made a graphic to show their viewers, listen, what Hegseth just said about us, that's a lie. No. We told all of our viewers and all the readers on our website, that's exactly what we told them. That's what they said this morning. Well, is that exactly what they told them? Here's Nick Fondacaro. He used the Wayback Machine. The Wayback Machine pulls up versions of websites and web pages that may have been updated or altered in the last couple of days, but the Wayback Machine on the internet, I'm sure you know this, it freezes the version of the web page from maybe 3-4 days ago if it's been changed. Using the Wayback Machine, you can see that the initial report pushed by Natasha Bertrand on Tuesday does not have the words low confidence or preliminary. The only times the word low is used was White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt telling CNN the leak came from an anonymous low-level loser in the intelligence community. And here's the link to the Wayback Machine, and we'll show it to you. Here's how it comes up. And nowhere in this article, when it was originally published, does CNN use low confidence or preliminary, just as Fondacaro points out. But there's more. Those words don't appear in any version of the article until Wednesday afternoon. That's yesterday afternoon, guys, when they quote Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's criticism of the assessment. So again, the only time they say low confidence or preliminary is not when they're reporting it to their viewers themselves. It's only when Secretary of Defense Hegseth used it and they quote him. Here's Natasha Bertrand. This is the original appearance on CNN reporting their exclusive. Take a look.
Trent, for the exclusive reporting. Natasha, what more are you learning?
Yeah, Boris, so this is an early assessment from the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is the Pentagon's intelligence arm. And we do want to emphasize that the intelligence, of course, is ongoing. The collection is ongoing, and the assessments as a result of that intelligence could change. But as of right now, the DIA has produced this intelligence assessment that we are told was based on the battle damage assessment that U.S. Central Command has done following those massive bombings and strikes that the U.S. carried out inside Iran last weekend. And what we are told is that based on the assessment of the damage that these bombs implemented on these nuclear sites, that as of right now, it does not appear that they ended or obliterated Iran's nuclear program. Instead, they only set it back by months, according to people who were briefed on the assessment. Now, these findings are obviously at odds with President Donald Trump's repeated assertions that the strikes, quote, completely and totally obliterated Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities, something that has been echoed as well by Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. But we did ask the White House for comment on this, and they appeared to acknowledge the existence of the assessment, but they said that they disagreed with it. According to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, she said, quote, this alleged assessment is flat out wrong. She said it was classified as top secret, but was still leaked to CNN by an anonymous low-level loser in the intelligence community. The leaking of this alleged assessment is a clear attempt to demean President Trump and discredit the brave fighter pilots who conducted a perfectly executed mission to obliterate Iran's nuclear program. Everyone knows what happens when you drop 14 30,000-pound bombs perfectly on their targets. Total obliteration. Now, it's worth noting that there has been some disagreement within the intelligence community.
All right. Now, they go on to break down their characterization through their anonymous sources about what the assessment says and about what the actual damage is. But you saw they immediately, like a minute into the report, made this about Trump and Hegseth said this. The report says this. Caroline Leavitt said it's all about, well, they're lying to you, right? But did you ever hear anywhere in that initial report CNN claim and acknowledge that this was a low confidence report or use the word preliminary? She said early assessment, which is very different than preliminary, right? But you saw the video clip from this morning where they claimed that, it was 100% in our original reports.
You need to make clear that despite the emotional speech and outrage from the defense secretary, what he said about the DIA assessment is what CNN reported on. His issue that he took about it being preliminary, about it being low confidence. CNN reported on all of this. I was looking back just to make sure that we had it all.
Yeah, you didn't look back properly, ma'am. You should take a look at the great work that Media Research Center does on this, because they really looked back. They have the clip. We just showed it to you. They never said low confidence. This morning, CNN lied again to their viewers, backtracking, backpedaling, moving the goalposts, and claiming, hey, we always reported that this was a low confidence assessment. We just showed you the clip. They did not. We just showed you the archived page of the initial report. They did not use the term low confidence or preliminary. So now CNN, by lying this morning, they're acknowledging that they screwed up. They are acknowledging that they lied in their original report. But who cares? We know that CNN lies, and we know that they mischaracterize things, and they know that they bend over backwards to try to characterize a story to hurt Trump. Doesn't really matter, right? Who cares about that? Well, somebody at the White House cares about it. In fact, Caroline Leavitt yesterday, she laid out exactly what the next step is with regard to this leak, and it's not going to end well for CNN or their anti-Trump pals at the Pentagon.
They took bits and pieces from a leaked top secret intelligence report. And by the way, I understand the FBI is investigating who was the source of that leak because it's an illegal leak to CNN. And this is the same fake news CNN reporter who wrote the story alleging that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, which we know is one of the greatest political hoaxes this country and the American public have ever seen. And that CNN story does not change the facts. There was a total and complete obliteration of Iran's nuclear facilities. And because of the president's strike, because of the precision of our United States military and this perfectly executed mission, Iran no longer has the capability to produce a nuclear weapon as imminently as they did prior to the strike. The American people and the world should be grateful for that, and it's disgusting that CNN and the New York Times are disparaging not just the president, but our brave men and women who helped conduct this highly successful operation.
All right, now I just want to make sure you didn't miss the very beginning of this. Quickly, you need to see it because this is the critical bite.
They took bits and pieces from a leaked top secret intelligence report, and by the way, I understand the FBI is investigating who was the source of that leak because it's an illegal leak to CNN. And this is the same fake news.
There you go. FBI is investigating this illegal leak. I don't think that happened during the Biden administration, if anything did leak during the Biden administration. In fact, generally speaking, administrations are loath to have the Justice Department engage in criminal investigations of leaks like this because people start screaming that they're infringing on press freedom and they're infringing on reporters in D.C. and their anonymous sources. And let's face it, a lot of White Houses, they utilize anonymous leaks to sort of advance their narratives and advance their stories. But not this White House and not this administration. They're done. They're over it, and they're finished. Somebody in the deep state intelligence community or at the Pentagon made an anonymous illegal leak of top secret information for political purposes, and the FBI is hunting it down. And it's not going to end well for them, and it's probably not going to end well for the media either. Sorry, the press does not have a First Amendment right to undermine our military and undermine our national security. Not without some level of accountability. And apparently, it's finally coming.
Hey, Larry, play the last 5 seconds of that Leavitt clip.
The last 5 seconds? Yeah, you bet.
Consequence could the leaker face?
They should go to jail.
Oh, thank you for that, Kevin. I'm sorry I missed that. And she's right. I do like the over-the-shoulder move there as she's walking away. One more time.
Consequence could the leaker face?
They should go to jail.
They should go to jail. Funny, when you break the law, you should go to jail. We endorse that message.